same, arguments and so on. So you cannot, and that is the problem. Really, how many of these politicians, whether they are, elected officials, are people you can confidently say have not been stained in the process. So these are some of the issues. But I would agree that for those people that are really committed, those people that are really desirous to see peaceful change in their environment and in their states and so on, it could help, to bridge the gap, because they are the people that are on ground. They understand the structures in the state and so on, and perhaps they could be able to also help.
Let's look at this school of thought. What if this group, because what if you went beyond the northern leaders? Because look at this. I mean, people ask time again, who are these guys? Why can't someone come up and say, listen, we know who these people are, we represent these people? Because remember, before now, we have heard politicians in some papers tell you, well, we actually warned against arming these youths, and now you've armed them, it's gone beyond us. Yeah. What if they are, somehow, you can't come out and admit that, well, this is beyond us, we need help?
Well, unless the state security services, the SSS, has changed so negatively in recent times and so on, I can tell you that the SSS has an idea about who the financiers and the sponsors of these people are. And if they know, and political pressure has been brought on the state security service and so on, I can also assure you that they have passed this information to certain relevant people in government. Do not forget the statements that the former NSA, Azazi, was making about the involvement of certain people in the Boko Haram insurgency and so on. The fact that once in a while a senator is linked directly or indirectly with the insurgency and so on, exactly, gives you an idea that they are known. Even at the very highest level of government in this country, we have been told that these people are known. They are in government. They have infiltrated the government and the rest. It was not a wild statement that was being made, but is the issue that brings, comes, to the issue of the political will. Is political expediency much more important, for instance, than the issue of security and safety? I think our politicians are trying to balance this, to walk a fine line. But what I want to believe that a normal politician, proper politician, will want to do is to place a higher premium on the interests of the people, on the lives and safety of the people, than on their political ambitions.
Well, I think we're getting to mix a point here, and that has to do with the argument that a whole lot of people have brought up to say we have three kinds of Boko Haram. Now, if you talk about the political aspect of Boko Haram, perhaps you call some of those political names and politicians. And some would say we also have the criminal element, while those also
the religious element. Element.
And if you talk about the religious element, for instance, and marry that with the Ombase group in Nasarawa State, they all would start with some kind of religion or tradition and tell you that this is it. We have rights to practice what we want to practice. But at the end of the day, it gets out of hand. So if we look at the Nasarawa case, for instance, and look at how Boko Haram started having their own enclave, and gradually it has spread to what we have as a monster all in our face, what do you think we haven't done well at the start of all of these groups?
Yeah, you ask yourself, did we not bring about the situation of the Ombatse, for instance? I mean, 13 policemen were killed in Bayelsa State, and nothing was seen to have been done about that. You see, somebody made this argument in fact that once a crime, goes unpunished, the heart of the people is filled with rebellion. And so that could also have flowed from there. And then again, not too long ago, we were told about either in Imo State or Abia State, about 4,000, repentant criminals, or came forward and said they had repented of various crimes that they have committed and that they needed amnesty, and so on and so forth. So, a situation where it appears, that those people who have been able to carry guns in this country and been able to defy and challenge the state has to sit down because the state has been unable to repress them or to suppress them. The state now sits down and says, look, what can we do? You understand? It is like you're begging, violent organizations in this country that, look, you stop what you're doing, then we give you something in exchange for breaking the laws of the country. And so that could have also encouraged groups like Ombatse and the rest, because somebody did make this argument, for instance, and it's important we say this. The Boko Haram elements, for instance, yes, you have the religious, the political, and so on, but it appears it is the political Boko Haram that has been on the ascendancy for quite some time. Now, somebody made an argument, somebody from, the minority part of the north or the Christian part of the north and so on, and he said, look, that the Boko Haram is made up of essentially Muslims and so on, Islamists and so on. And you have groups, a lot of groups in the a Middle Belt and other parts of the north, like Nasarawa State and some other states, that are not Muslims. Now, you are talking about amnesty. And of course, the amnesty, apart from giving them cash, like we saw in the Niger Delta amnesty program, you're also going to send some of them abroad. Going to send some of them, to learn, all kinds of skills and the rest. Now, you are giving them an edge over those ones that have been quiet and peaceful, and so on. What is the reward? What kind of reward are you going to give those that have shown respect for the rule of law, that have not carried arms against the state? Why would you always reward those that have shown violent tendencies against the state and try to undermine the state? So once that happens, a lot of people are going to sit back and say, well, they are giving more advantage to certain people from certain parts of the country because they're able to make noise, through violence. Now we also have to look for a way, and that is the danger. A blackmailer would always come back. And this is exactly what we're seeing. By the time he runs out of, the funds that you have given him as a result of blackmail, he's going to remember you again and he's going to come back. And that's what we're seeing.
Eventually, two things stick out like a sore thumb here. Politics and the law. Because just as you say, if any group of people or individual whatsoever will ever conceive and go ahead and carry out threatening or challenging the state, that's a big challenge. And then, if you play politics with it,
it's not just politics, dangerous politics that is being played in this country. Because if you look at if you consider the president's broadcast to the nation again, he mentioned as many as 11 states that were becoming or that had become unstable, where this insurgency is taking place. That's almost 1/3 of all the states in the country. That is frightening. And then when you also include among those 11 states, the states where kidnapping has become endemic, you're talking about half of the states in this country that are becoming unstable. It's a frightening scenario. So I don't know how we're going to get out of it, but we are really sitting on a time bomb. And so people have made this argument that, one of the criteria for determining a failing state is the fact that it is not only the government that has monopoly over the means of violence. Now we have so many groups in Nigeria.
Your argument before Chamberlain came up with his own question there is something I wanted us to go back to. You see, you can go to so many states, so many. Once we had so many troublemakers in every state. There's always a troublemaker in every state. And when a government comes into power, the first thing most of them do is to give appointments to some of these troublemakers.
Yeah.
It's either you are the chairman of a bus park, or you're the chairman in charge of a market, or you're the chairman in charge of people collecting revenue for the government.
Yeah.
And that is how they all started. Yeah. And what we have seen is a gradual degeneration of some of the activities of these people to cause mayhem, especially when there is a change of government.
Yeah.
And the new man decides to bring his own thug, politically speaking, crown him and make him look like a legitimate person in authority. So how can we put a stop to all of this to the extent that all of those thugs already enjoying the patronage of those in government can actually be brought to book and move on?
Well, I know that the destruction and dismantling of the mafia in the United States came with a price, at a price. Same thing in Italy, the mafioso in Italy, and so on. A price has to be paid by everybody. Because the danger is that if we allow the society to degenerate to the point of conflict, even the innocents will be consumed in the process. And so, a lot of people, especially those that are in government, those that have the constitutional mandate to govern this country, must realize that even they must be ready to stake something. And that something also has to do, they must ask themselves, how much am I committed to this country? How much do I love Nigeria? If the answer is that the love and the commitment to self is greater than the love and commitment to the country, we cannot get out of this. But if they can answer that question in the positive, that I'm much more committed to this country than to all my personal interests and so on, then they would have the ability and the courage to do the right thing. And that means moving against the train, moving against those people that have held this country down. There are consequences. But again, like I said, life is not in the hands of any man. It's in the hands of the Almighty. They could actually succeed. But the structure of corruption, the structure of parochialism, the structure of ethnicity and religious bigotry can only be destroyed when people of courage decide to do the right thing by the country.
So doing the right thing, no matter whose ox is God, is key here. Well, thank you for coming on. Achike Chude, public affairs analyst.